Toy Tractor Times is here at the 2014 National Farm Toy Show. We're with Jason Hassert, who plays second in the small division. Jason, do you want to tell us a little bit about your display?
Sure, Steve. Thank you very much. It's been exciting to be here at Dyersville at the show. It was exciting to win the second place trophy. The display is called the Neal Farm. I put a poster together to talk about the Neal Farm in West New York State near Rochester, New York. I grew up in the town of Churchville, and I wanted to replicate the Neal Farm where I grew up riding on their combine and seeing how the farm worked. And then also how it retired and a larger grain farm, the Volkman Farms, took over the land and leased it. We showed some of the steps that it took to build the display, used a hot knife to sculpt the styrofoam boards, which were blue insulation from Lowe's. It took 1 gallon of paint, 2 pounds of dirt, 6 gallons of drywall mud, 80 ounces of glue, 350 feet of rope, 300 feet of string, 1,500 push pins, and 14,400 corn stalks to create a muddy corn harvest set in December of the year. And this is how the farm would have looked during the 1980s into the 1990s. We'll take a tour and kind of look at what's happening here. I wanted to put as much detail in as possible. We've got a snow plow pushing just the last of the snow off from the past snowstorm. It's starting to melt. Also have the field here is being plowed. I used static grass to give the wheat stubble, and then the green rows that you see are kind of the volunteer wheat coming up from the windrowed straw that was baled earlier in the summer. There's an International 4786 four-wheel drive and a 10-bottom International 800 on-land plow that flexes, and I wanted to show that kind of cresting the hill. You can see there's seagulls out there. Churchville's located about 18 miles from Lake Ontario, so there's always lots of seagulls when tillage is taking place. Again, you can see on the headland every little track that the 4786 has made throughout the field. When the Neals retired, they had a dry cow barn that they stored straw in, but over the years it began to decay and deteriorate. So my friend Chris Steve created this barn that has the roof kind of caved in, a lot of the roof peeling up. You can see there's some moldy straw. There's actually doves inside the rafters and some cats down on the floor. A lot of stone work, and again, just that realistic look of some of the wood falling off, some of the roof sheeting laying down on the ground. The Neals had a Fortson Major tractor, and that was when the farm retired, simply parked at the bottom of the barn, and you can see it sitting there and slightly rusted and weathered inside the building. We can also see in this pasture ground a Wildcat 3 Steiger on a caddy, and this is how the track combines were brought to the field to harvest through this mud. Because of the steel tracks, they were not able to travel down the road, and this system helps move the machines. The Neals also had an International number 10 grain drill, and that is parked here in the pasture with weeds growing up, and it's again rusted. One of the things I wanted to do to create a separation between the pasture ground and the field was create some fence posts. These are matchsticks simply painted with white and black paint to show weathering, and then beads attached to show the conductors where the electric fence would have been to keep the cows at one time. Again, you might notice the landscape of the pasture slightly rolling, and I wanted to show kind of a rougher ground where cows had been at one time versus the smooth field that was plowed every year. As we move along, we have 2 John Deere 7720 combines harvesting in the field. This is kind of a low ground, so there's a lot of mud. They have steel tracks that we used cocoa powder just to make it look like there's dirt up on the combines. There's a driver inside each machine inside the cab. This combine is using a 6-row 643 tin head. And then as we move on over to the other machine, it has a brand new 693 poly head. The local John Deere dealer has brought this out so the farm can try it in these tough harvest conditions to see how the plastic poly heads work much smoother in lifting up the corn in the snow and mud. As we look down the rows, there again are 14,400 stalks. This is set in a time period before GPS, so I put in some little gaps to show the guess rows of where the planter was following the marker arm and the splits between each 12-row pass that was made. The fence row is made from Woodland Scenics dead maple trees. The biggest challenge of this display was creating a winter siding, because there's a lot of great trees out there for fall and spring, but not so much for the winter. I used corn silks to create vines. There's a lot of vines in western New York. Hung them over the trees and then sprayed them down with water so they would droop and create a natural effect. As you look straight down the edge of the fence row, you can see the plow furrow, as well as some goldenrod and weeds, rocks that were dumped by the rock picker in the spring to create a natural fence line and boundary to the field. There are also spruce trees. There are a lot of spruce trees in the region. They were raised at one time to build carriages and wagons in the 1800s, so there's still a lot in the region. As we come along through the display, again we can see the Wildcat 3 in the trailer. There is, because the combines have tracks on them, they can't get up on the road to unload into the truck. A Byron dump cart, which is built in Byron, New York, not far from Churchville, is being used to shuttle the corn out. You'll notice that it's only about half full because of the weight of the corn would be too much if it was all the way filled to lift and dump in the truck. It's being pulled by a Steiger PTA 325 that the Volkman farms used for many years. Again, you can see the John Deere dealer stopping by to talk about the new corn head, and there's also a Ford backhoe with it's customized to have a 4-post ROPS cab, and that's used to scrape the mud off left by the tractor when it's dumping in the truck. There's a deer crossing sign here, just to add a little more detail to the display. We have an Oliver 1755 hauling cabbage down the road. Same time of year in December as they're trying to fight to get the corn out, they're also trying to harvest cabbage in the area. It'll be made into sauerkraut. Again, I'd like to point out that there's a telephone box every 500 feet along this road, along with the power lines. To add a little more realism, there's some older tractors. Churchville had a Massey Harris dealer at one time. This is a Massey Harris 44. Has a coffee can over the muffler, as well as a flat tire, just again to show the age. Inside the barn, hay is being stored. The farmers recently started baling hay commercially in small squares. They used to use a kick baler. John Deere offers the option to tilt the kicker back and have a bale quarter turn on the back at the same time. And I placed that here in the barn for some winter storage. Again, there's some square bales inside along with loose hay. There is a rusty disc parked here in the weeds, as well as the farm's older grain truck. And one of the fun things I wanted to show was a Ford 640 combine parked here under the tree. That was the farm's combine, and now it's rusting away, sitting alongside the road. As we move to the back lot of the barn, this is where the cows at one time would have been. The farm is storing some of their hay equipment. Again, they just picked up a new New Holland stack wagon, stack cruiser. They have a 499 hay mower. There's an International 1066 inside with a 155 John Deere blade just to help clear off the road again. You can see that this equipment is shedded. A hay rake, there's less expensive machines left outside. It shows a little age along with it. Inside the barn, the roof comes off. We can see the stacks of hay created by the stack wagon, along with the loose hay and all the detail that was built by Jay Kreiser to create this very nice Western New York style barn. We have a Steiger Panther ST310 parked in the yard. The farm wanted to try out a new DMI Eco-Tiger, but unfortunately it's such a wet fall, they're going to have to wait to the spring maybe to try to work up the ruts across the road. Each of the tractors that have driven to this yard have left their tractor tire prints. You can see there's some melting snow creating puddles in the potholes, and there are corresponding tracks throughout the yard, including underneath the Panther 3. We still have some of the old rack wagons parked here. They still kick a little hay for some local people with horses that want to unload themselves. As we come along, there's these very large established trees. These were made out of wire from an extension cord. We wanted to create some taller, higher trees, so these were custom made. And as we look along the plowed field where it meets the farmyard, you can see one of the roots. These trees would have extensive roots that's sticking out in the field and has been cut by the plow as it comes through. Because the area, again, as we talked earlier, is located near Lake Ontario, there's always seagulls coming in. We can see the big International 800 plow cresting the hill, and the seagulls right on its tail eating the earthworms. Inside the tractor, there's also a driver. You can see here he actually even has an International Harvester hat on to go with his big 300 horsepower tractor. So this is a tour of the Neal farm. It was exciting to come out to the show, and I'm very glad to be able to share it with everyone who's interested in farm displays.